Do you like horror? Vendors with not so sound medical advice? And animal bones? Well, do I have the convention for you. Hey there, all you ghouls, goblins, and shrieks. This is Axolotl Aristotle here with a special Halloween episode. Created in 2022, Port of Fear is an indie horror movie convention located in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where filmmakers both local and from around the world gather to show off their latest creature features. I figured since September is so close to the spookiest time of the year, praise be to Pumpkin, I'd head out and explore this frightening festival. Now normally, I'd be the one to discuss what the con is, what it's about, and what you can do there. However, unlike my previous con documentaries, I was actually able to speak to the creators, Jeanette and David Height, so without further ado, I'll let them tell you.
So I'm Jeanette Haight.
And I'm David Haight.
And we run the Port of Fear Film Festival in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We are Kenosha's only film festival specializing in everything horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and thriller. In addition to over 60 films from around the world, we also have a horror spooky market where we have over 50 vendors both days of the festival, specializing in everything spooky and spectacular.
Why horror specifically? Like, what got you into the genre and led to this amazing festival?
I'll say, why not horror? And then on top of that, horror fans are the most engaged of pretty much any genre. They'll come out for about any movie. They're just excited that...
I'm guilty of this.
Yes, they're just excited that people are getting stabbed or creatures that are weird and scary or popping out from, hidden doorways and stuff like that. So horror is just something that is very inclusive. It's something that a lot of people, whether they think it or not, really enjoy. And there's different levels of horror. There's super extreme, really tough to watch films, and then there's stuff that's cute and just happens to have a baby vampire.
I saw over there you guys are doing raffles, and the proceeds go to 5-minute horror films by students.
Yep.
And I've seen a couple of films here, and they had shorts at the start of them before that. Were those like the 5-minute ones from last year, or was that like a different thing?
So the 5-Minute Horrors is actually a program that the Port of Fear runs in Kenosha and Racine, where we take local high school students and challenge them to make their own 48-hour horror film. The films that you saw here today are actually films both made in the U.S., the Midwest, and internationally. The ones that we're going to have for the 5-Minute Horrors will actually debut in 2025 as the opener for the film festival.
But why horror? My first con documentary on a furry convention was because of a crazy conspiracy popularized by Joe Rogan. The second at Chicago's Pride Fest was because of all the hate targeting the LGBTQ community. So why am I here on the coast of Lake Michigan watching horror movies? Well, for one, I really like it. There you go. 2, for more of an actual answer, horror has a rich history of inclusivity and the deconstruction of discrimination, both personal and societal. From Mary Shelley's queer-coded Frankenstein novel in 1818, to George Romero's original zombie flick Night of the Living Dead, featuring race relations, and even modern classics like Train to Busan or Get Out, the genre just keeps the bangers coming.
And I think when you, especially with horror, and it comes down to like LGBTQ topics and just, getting that demographic into the conversation in a positive light, horror is actually really good because you can actually take those characters, put them in scenarios where everyone else is going to react the exact same way, and it normalizes any demographic that's in a minority status, here in the U.S., or any demographic that might be demonized for, all the wrong reasons. Horror does a really good job of showing everyone's going to react the exact same way.
And it shows the real demons, right?
It shows the real demons, and sometimes the heroes that you don't expect are the ones are coming from people who you think are probably the villains.
Mm-hmm.
We all have purpose. Even if sometimes we feel like we're lost in life, we all have purpose. We're all valuable.
In addition to LGBTQ IA+, we're also trying to really go into other voices just being heard as well. So Black voices, Native American, Asian, and women, female directors and writers.
The Scalawag Code is a book that I wrote for young people that teaches them the value of being kind and compassionate and helpful to those, no matter who they are. The definition of a 21st century scalawag is someone who's willing to help anyone in need, no matter their color or creed. So that's kind of my platform.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Only 7% of my viewers currently are, and if you don't subscribe, you'll make Daisy sad. Anyways, back to the video. Now, some viewers who pay attention to the background of my videos for some ungodly reason have probably already noticed the name of the location of this convention, the Kemper Center. Usually a con location doesn't really matter. You're there for the con after all. But some locals informed me that the Kemper Center was actually haunted, so I decided to do a little bit of research. Built in 1861 by former Republican Senator Charles Durkheim, the property was promptly given over to nuns in 1865 when Durkheim's duties took him to Utah, a state that I completely forgot existed. For over 100 years until 1975, the property had become Kemper Hall, a boarding school run by nuns made for troubled girls. After the school closed, Kemper Hall became Kemper Center, a community center still used to this day. Obviously. With its regular history out of the way, now we can get to the juicy bits. There were 3 prominent deaths at Kemper Hall, if the legends are to be believed. One was a student throwing herself off the roof due to unrequited love. In 1899, a new nun joined the school, only to be gripped by madness. In 1900, she supposedly threw herself off the rocks behind the school directly into Lake Michigan, where her body was found days later by 2 children. And the most gruesome story involves murder. Apparently, one nun was said to be extremely cruel to the students, and one day the student body had grown sick of it. When that nun went to the observatory at the top of the spiral staircase, the students lined up along it. When the sister was said to have exited, the students kicked, pushed, and beat her down 5 stories of stairs, leading to a broken and dead nun at the bottom. I guess that certainly spiraled out of control. If the stories are to be believed, she still wanders the halls to this day, looking to punish both her murderers and anyone she deems to be sinful. Guess she was having none of that behavior. Nowadays, the common ghost occurrences include footsteps following you, ghosts appearing in the windows, figures appearing and disappearing throughout the halls, and one particular ghost that watches you from the entrance of the gym before it can be heard climbing upstairs. I just wish Port of Fear did some type of haunted tour or historical event of the Kemper Center at the con. Maybe they did in the last 2 years, but nothing like that was available this year. Which is a real shame. I just think it'd be pretty cool, you know? Also, if you have any ghost stories or unsolved mysteries of local places you know about, please tell me in the comments. I eat that shit up. Seeing as this is a horror movie convention, I should probably get around to discussing the movies I actually got to see. There was at least one movie showing no matter what. Usually in either the gymnasium or the Founders Hall, though they did have a couple outdoor movies late at night. I was lucky enough to see 4 movies: Flux, I'm Your Host, Jeffrey's Hell, and a compilation of horror comedy shorts. Feel free to keep listening because I won't give in-depth spoilers, just my general thoughts. First up, let's talk about Jeffrey's Hell. It's a found-footage documentary-style movie about Aaron Irons, a filmmaker dead set on discovering what actually happened to the aforementioned Jeffrey, who mysteriously vanished in a forest fire over 100 years ago. When Aaron is given coordinates to an unmarked cave in the Tennessee woods, he enthusiastically sets out by himself to finally uncover the mystery. Found footage, spelunking alone, and unsolved mysteries. What's not to like? My favorite part of the movie was how expertly they handled the tension and aura of dread. They knew how to let it hang instead of ruining it with cheap jump scares. There was even a phone scene that was very reminiscent of the one in Skinamarink. 10 out of 10, would watch again. Next up, the horror comedy shorts. There were quite a few of them, so I won't really go over them all, but my top picks have to be Dead Men Ride Again, a zombie western where a postman must brave the horde to deliver a package, and Lost Boys Pizza, described as
Lost Boys Pizza. It encompasses tampons, sparkles, vampires, and pizza. We love it.
Speaking of creators, I was lucky enough to actually get to speak with a couple directors and gain their insight both into the horror genre itself and what it's like making their own movies.
I'm a storyteller some people are storytellers, and I've always been a storyteller. So if you're a storyteller, you got a story to tell, then you can make a film. You just have to be patient. It's not going to be great the first time. It's probably not going to be great the second time, but story is king. And so if you have a good story, then do the best you can with everything else and just learn. It takes time. I went to YouTube University, is what I call it. I did a lot of filmmaking, studying by watching other people and videos and being taught by people on YouTube, and just going out and shooting. Just go out and shoot. And learn to edit, or find people that maybe can do that better than you or whatever. But you got to have a good story. Here's the other tip that I give people. The first book I ever got on filmmaking was called Edit Better by Jeff Barch. And he's a film editor in Hollywood. He doesn't live there, but I mean, he's a big time film editor. He wrote this book. And I always say that's the first book you should read, because he talks about editing, and editing is so essential. Outside of story, you got to know what to cut, and you can't be precious with footage. And the biggest mistake I find in young filmmakers is their films are too long. And so you cut. In fact, one of the phrases in the book is cut, and then when you think you've got it perfect, cut some more. So it's really awesome. My first short film, I think, was 13 minutes, maybe 14 minutes, which now I know is too long. At the time, well, it's certainly too long for festivals. It doesn't seem long to watch it, but it won't get into festivals, or I mean, it got into some festivals, I guess, because it was a good story. But I've learned the sweet spot for me in festivals is about 7.5 minutes. So I try to keep
number 7.
Yeah, I keep it at about 7.5 minutes, and but that's just, then you kind of learn to write your story to that time frame. And if you can write your story to 7 minutes, then you don't have to cut so much, because you've already cut it in your mind in your story.
Yeah, we only had 5 instead of 7 shooting days, so it was just kind of a thing of like, okay, we'll shoot out this location first and then we'll move on to this one, and figuring out what was going to take the longest and just figuring out the shooting schedule from there. The distribution plans are really just for a release after our festival run. We're still waiting to hear back from like 20 festivals, I think, just on whether or not we're screening. I think this one, currently our run is at 16 that we're in, and so I know. Budget, everyone, for your festival run. But yeah, after that, just sort of having it available on my website and my Vimeo.
What is the website?
My website, check it out, is eatbrainsmedia.com.
I love it. I love to hear it.
Thank you.
Is this your first time at Port of Fear, or are you a returning film producer?
Well, I am. I did have a film here, I think last year, which was called Phantom Heart, and I unfortunately couldn't make it though to the screening. So this is my second time in the fest, but first time actually coming and enjoying it. And this, I think what David managed to do here is amazing.
Yeah, like as I was telling like everyone else, we didn't know about this until late last year. Like there was only 3 or 4 hours left Sunday, and we came and we got to walk around a bit. It's crazy how much it's grown in just 1 year, and I hope this, I can't wait to see what it looks like next year. Man, I'm an interviewer. I don't know what question to ask. Look at me go. This is why I'm not the producer. This
You're
is
doing
why.
great.
Yeah.
You got this.
So, what made you want to, I guess, write, produce, direct movies?
I really love myself and my work. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I grew up wanting to be like an actor, so for the longest time I was pursuing theater acting, and then I developed major stage fright. So I was like in college and I was like, for some reason I feel like stage fright and theater acting is not going to mix very well. So I was still kind of shifted gears to directing, and then just was like, I really love film, so I guess to study filmmaking and that, and so it just kind of like became natural. Like I didn't know that I wanted to be like necessarily a director of film until like, I was like, maybe I'll go for film theory and just become a critic and comment on everyone else making movies.
Yeah, this is what I would have done. Like, oh, why'd you do that?
Exactly. And it just kind of like from there, I was like, wow, I really love the power and control that comes with being a writer and a director and also a producer. So.
All right, let's get back to the movies. I'm Your Host wasn't what I expected it to be in the best way possible. The synopsis reads, Vampires, witches, werewolves, and ghoulies. Kenosha has the highest population of horror hosts per capita, who produce their own homemade TV shows showing cult-followed horror films. This documentary explores their relationship as a community, their triumphs, and a tragic loss that bonds them together. I, for some stupid reason, thought this was a horror comedy mockumentary. But no, it's a real documentary about horror hosts, specifically the local ones like Dr. Destruction, Hex and Arcane, and Edgar's Dark Coffin classics. For those not in the know, horror hosts are really rad people that have local TV shows, and now YouTube channels, where they show public domain horror movies and share their wealth of esoteric horror genre knowledge in a wacky and whimsical fashion. This was a real treat for me. Young Axolotl grew up every Saturday watching hours of the Three Stooges before Svengoolie came on. Even though I was a bit of a cowardly kid, having some silly guy there discussing the movie and genre filled me with a sense of camaraderie, and it was probably the only thing that let me get through those films, if I'm being honest. Honestly, horror hosts feel like the OG content creators in a way. People filled with passion, little to no budget, and just making the content they enjoy because they enjoy making it. Mad respect to all the horror hosts out there, and I highly recommend giving it a watch. And finally, we have Flux, a thriller about movie star Veda Pierce stuck in a sort of loop. Anytime she tries to leave her house, she immediately wakes up drowning in her bathtub. This one was probably the movie I could sit anyone down in front of, and they'd immediately think it was made by a big-name studio because the production quality is just that good. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't fail its premise per se, but the way it solves Veda's reset loop felt really disappointing and unoriginal. Maybe it was my fault going in with expectations of a character actively trying to solve and experiment their way out of a weird situation, instead of just having things kind of happen to them. But that's enough about what I thought of the movies. During my interviews, I thought it'd be fun to ask everyone what their least favorite horror movie was.
What is your least favorite horror movie? What is your least favorite horror movie? What is your least favorite horror movie? What is your least favorite horror movie?
Man.
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, man.
Oh man, my least favorite.
Probably Pet Sematary, because as a child I had a zombie dog.
God damn. Oh, Bone Tomahawk. Everybody loved that movie, and I don't know why. It's with Kurt Russell and like a bunch of like big named actors, and it's just it fucking sucks. There's no other word for it. Like, I don't know why it gets so much praise. It is boring as shit. It's just about cowboys like talking about nothing for like 2.5 hours, and then everybody dies at the end. It's just...
It's because I don't generally like to rip on films. I don't have one on the tip of my tongue. Although there are some bad ones out there, and I think I'll tell you this much. Whatever bad one I would say, it's usually because the story was not tight enough, maybe it wasn't cut down enough, and most importantly, it had a bad ending. You go up on the roller coaster and you're waiting for the big woo down, but then it gets stuck at the top. And then it's like, oh, That's all. It's stuck up here, and that's sometimes I think what happens with movies. They just get stuck, and they didn't end right. So I have a problem with that. But I can't. I'm not gonna name any.
Okay, my least favorite horror movie. I think for some reason all I can think of is The Grudge, the American remake.
As I was just saying to David and Jen, the Ring remake is mine. Because I saw the original, I was like, oh, this is great, I want more Ring. And then I saw the American, I was like, oh.
And last but not least when it comes to Port of Fear is the Spooky Market. Much like my experience at Midwest Fur Fest, I was absolutely taken aback by the variety offered up by the Spooky Market. There were artists with the usual inventory of stickers and crafts, of course, but then the offerings took a delightfully ghoulish turn. There was an assortment of animal bones, some decorated in shadow boxes, others in owl pellets. Tons of horror literature. Chilling confectionaries where the raw meat Rice Krispies were the standout. And a bunch of horror-themed bath bombs. I'm sure they probably don't smell like their inspirations, but I personally think it would make for a great gag gift. Let's be honest, we all have that one person in our lives.
Hi, so I kind of just love all of these stickers, so I just had to get an interview with you. What is your inspiration for just making the fun stickers that you have?
I'm a social worker in my day job, so a lot of the mental health stuff is inspired by that. And then also, like, I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up in the early 90s, you know, staying with my grandma, watching Unsolved Mysteries, reading the weird V.C. Andrews books she had. So I think that colors a lot of my art. I'm a huge fan of the macabre and just generally things that are fun and dark. And so I like to call my art bubblegum goth.
That is definitely a way to describe art. I love it. But yeah, I'm a fan of the macabre too. I was actually at a Hearst show a couple months ago, you know. I didn't even know there was a thing. And then someone's like, hey, come to this place. They have a Hearst show going on. I was like, yes.
Didn't know this existed, but yes, that's my vibe.
Yeah, same with Port of Fear. I didn't know it existed last year. That we kind of found out about it. There's only like 3 or 4 hours left, so got to stop by. Were you here last year?
I was not, no.
This is your first year here. How are you liking it?
I'm really enjoying it. I like meeting the other vendors, the people who are coming through. People are just really kind about, you know, loving the art that's around them everywhere. And it's a good show.
What is your favorite inclusive or queer-coded horror movie?
Gotta be our king, Babadook, man.
I was just saying, honorary mention always goes to Babadook, just the queer icon.
Sure.
So, your business is, what was it called?
Upholstergeist.
Upholstergeist. And are these real skulls?
Everything here is real. All the specimens are real.
How do you get, I'm assuming, like you get Domestos beetles to get rid of the fleshy bits on the skulls?
So I usually buy my specimens cleaned already. There's a few local suppliers that I go through.
So you're not the one like getting rid of all the gross bits.
The only one that I had to do a little bit of cleaning on was this guy right here. He still had I found him in like an old school antique shop, and he still had like a bunch of old skin left on him. So I had to put him in a big old bucket with an aquarium heater and let him sit there for like 2 weeks, change the water out a little, but leave like a third of it in there every single day. And it eventually all came off, so.
So what about when it comes to like the insects? How do those work?
I've only done a little bit of like spreading and whatnot and pinning. I pinned a few spiders and a couple moths, but for the most part, there is another shop owner down the way. Her name's Macy, and I buy my stuff already like pinned and spread through her normally, or like I'll go through like Etsy or eBay.
And then I know bones. I mean, if you take care of them, they won't last forever, but they'll last a very, very, very long time. What about when it comes to the, like the insects or that fish? How long do those have like a shelf life of how long they'll be viable for?
As long as they aren't in like humid environments with like direct sunlight, they should last I don't want to say forever, but a long time. You just have to take care of them properly.
And how did you get into the business of making art from skulls and insects and stuff?
So I actually ended up making a couple of gifts for my friend for her birthday like 3 years ago. Yeah, like 3 years ago. And I knew she liked creepy dead stuff, and I just bought some stuff online, and it's like, I'll make some shadow boxes out of them. Why not? And ever since then, I found that this has kind of been a passion, and I just find myself enjoying it.
Nice. So you've only been doing this for like 2-ish years then?
Yes. Only about 2 years.
Is this your first time at Port of Fear?
This is my second year.
Oh, okay. How popular and like how big is the community for stuff like this? Because I have no idea about anything related to skulls and shadow boxes and stuff.
Much bigger than you'd expect. Like every year, Oddities Expo and World Oddities goes around the country and outside of the country. It's a huge, like both of those are huge events. Like there is a large market for this stuff.
So cool. What is the weirdest skull or insect or story you have when it comes to doing this stuff?
So I'd have to say the weirdest one would have to be the very first one I did, which was a banana spider. It did not come already pinned and like spread into position. Uh-oh. So I had to pull the spider out and touch it with my hands, and I didn't really like that part at all.
I mean, that's fair. I would not want to touch dead things.
And then I had to boil it in hot water for a few minutes to loosen it up.
Oh,
so and then I had to pin it into place in the exact position I wanted it to be. But it ended up being pretty cool. I just hated the process.
Yeah, I can see why you're like, oh yeah, I have all these suppliers. I don't want to do this stuff. No, thank you. Hello, I just saw this giant rune definition board, and I had to come over and see what was up. And apparently that has to do with your newest. It's your newest book, right?
That's my newest book, Runestone Curse. That's my 4th book.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what type of books you write? Obviously, horror.
Well, they're cryptid mysteries. Like, it's a murder mystery with a cryptid twist. Main character is a cryptozoologist. He travels throughout all the books, and murder and mayhem ensues, and there's a cryptid creature in each one of the books.
Oh, fun. Is it? And I'm gonna assume that it's not always the cryptid creature that's doing the things.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's up to the reader to decide.
Ooh, fun.
Was it a person, a murderer, or was it the cryptid?
You've heard of choose your own adventures. Now it's to choose your own mysteries.
There you go. There's always a logical explanation for what happens with the cryptid.
But the less logical are usually the more fun.
It's more fun, exactly, yes.
So what got you into writing about cryptids?
Well, I wanted to write murder mysteries, but I wanted something different besides I found all these clues and blah, blah, blah. So I wanted something a little different, and I thought the cryptids, and it started with Sinister Bay. The cryptid in it is a giant sturgeon, and it's in Lake Superior, and I thought, that's such a vast lake, who knows what's down there, and it's a swimming dinosaur,
Ooh, fun. And then you were telling me earlier, Whitewater Witch, it's based on literally just like all the local folklore in Whitewater, Wisconsin.
Yes, it is fiction though. And the cryptid in that is the Beast of Bray Road, which is a wolf man sort of character. And that's the cryptid in that story. It's not about the cryptid as much as the other things that happen. There's a lot to do with the Witch's Tower and the legends. But there is some things that happen. And my take on how the Beast of Bray Road got to be the beast.
Ooh. So going more into that on like the local folklore side, when you were doing research for the book, did you actually go to Whitewater, or was it just like looking up online where you were talking to people? How did that work out?
At the time I was working in Whitewater.
Oh.
And found out about the legends by accident and thought, I think there's a book here. So they have a spirit tour, in October. I went on the spirit tour, did a lot of research, and voila.
Yeah. Awesome. And you were saying that it's a series of books, but you don't have to read it in order. You could just pick and choose what you want.
Yes. They're standalone books. There's different characters in all of them. One character, the cryptozoologist, is in all of the stories, but there's different characters throughout. So you can read them standalone, or you can hopefully read them all.
So do I have to know these by heart in order to read the Runestone Curse?
Absolutely not.
No?
My rune reader in the story will walk you through how to read a rune, how to do a rune reading, what each of the things means. So she'll explain it in the story.
Cool. What got you into writing?
I used to be in journalism and wrote for newspapers and magazines freelance. Couldn't really make a living, so I was a pool director for 20 some odd years, and then decided I wanted to go back to writing. Wrote the first book. And
That's awesome.
yes, it's been fun. I love it.
Where can people find your books?
At any festival where I'm at, or you can find them on Amazon, in Kenosha here at Studio Moonfall, in Whitewater at the Bookteller.
So you're a local of...
I live in Kenosha.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yes.
How you like Kenosha?
Love Kenosha. I have lived in a lot of different places, but I love Kenosha.
That's wonderful. Is this your first time at Port of Fear?
No, my second.
Did you just come, or were you like a marketer both times?
I was a vendor last year. They approached me at a book festival and asked if I'd be interested, and I thought, well, we'll see how it goes. Went really well, so I returned this year.
Especially because it's literally in your backyard.
Exactly. 10 minutes from my house.
So I'm here at Port of Fear, and I just could not help but come here when I saw that I should drink the paint water. Do you want to tell us what was the inspiration for the name?
Well, I think it's a universal fear for any artist or miniature painter or whatever, that you've accidentally picked up that water cup and taken a sip, maybe your rinse cup, or worse, put your brush in your beverage. So I thought it would just be a funny name that would draw in people, or people that aren't familiar with that. They come in and they ask. I've actually had people think that I was selling drinks here. Not here at this point.
Yeah. You don't actually want to drink the paint water, contrary to what the sign says.
This is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. You wouldn't go to this doctor. Yeah.
How do magnets work? I mean, science, obviously.
Mitochondrions. What are those Star Wars things?
Midichlorians.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah.
Yeah. I. You know what? People watching this video, I want you in the comments to either give the most in-depth definition of how magnets work, or like the most insane, and we'll just go with whatever sounds best. So what exactly do you do? I mean, you're an artist. You make the frames. So what is your inspiration?
Well, my name is Jason Brownkowski from Drink the Paint Water, and my art is weird and whimsical with a dash of dark humor. There's an elevator pitch for you kids. Basically, I make fun illustrations. A lot of it just for myself, just whatever makes me laugh. I have a really good time making my art. If something doesn't make me laugh while I'm making it,
it's bad. Throw it out.
Yeah, it's not worthwhile, you know. But sometimes you get commissions that you have to do something for somebody else. Yeah. But the stuff that I'm making for myself, if it's not cracking me up, forget it.
Okay, if it's not too much to ask, what's the weirdest commission you've ever been asked to make?
There was somebody requested a commission of a goose riding on the back of a flying bullfrog, like up over a factory. So there was like clouds in a factory. They were in the sky, and he was drinking Diet Coke. It was very specific, very weird. At least not freaky.
They had a vision, all right?
They had a vision, and they paid me for it. So whatever. Yeah.
So do you have like an online store, or can people only find you at cons?
Thanks for asking. You can go to drinkthepaintwater.com. There are prints, not these little prints, but I sell 8x10s, big prints, original art, and also there's videos of my art creation process and things like that. So if you're just into watching a weirdo make weird art, drinkthepaintwater.com.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your con and you sell everything.
Me too. Thanks a lot.
As for what I bought personally from the con, well, it was quite the haul. I got loads of stickers for my sticker book. My favorite being these cute little creatures called froglers, ready to take on gender conformity. A signed book from Deborah O's because I have a soft spot for fiction based on actual local folklore. Oh, and a vial of skunk ribs. I don't actually know why I got them or what I'm gonna do with them, but I guess I'm spiritually stinky now. So, would I recommend checking out Port of Fear? 100% an enthusiastic yes. It was an absolute blast filled with awesome people, sweet merch, and fantastic movies. Thank you all so much for watching, and an especially big thank you to my patrons, Foxboy5692, Pip the Badger, and Eric Torgler.
Present to you Dogs Petting Dogs. Good girl. Good girl. You pet yourself. Yeah, good girl. Good girl. Look at her go. You're so sweet.